All right. Okay. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're coming from. Hopefully, you can hear us okay. I'm Doyle Buehler, and I'm very excited to be with a couple of my sales mentors. I've got Tim Hughes all the way from London. I've got Cian McLoughlin from Sydney, and Gulliver Giles. We're trying to get from Sydney, Melbourne rather. We're trying to get him online also. So hopefully he'll connect in a few minutes. So in the meantime, yeah, just welcome everybody. Tim, do you want to give yourself a quick little intro and we'll get going?
Yes, I'm the author of the book Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers, available on all Amazon platforms. And I'm also the co-founder of a UK-based social agency where we provide advice up to people on a social basis, and that's called Digital Leadership Associates.
Fantastic. Excellent. And we'll probably get a little bit more into kind of what you do and how you do. But Cian, would you like to have a go as well?
Hard to top that, Doyle. Good morning, everyone. I'm Cian McLoughlin. I'm the founder and CEO of a business called Trinity. We're a sales training and advisory firm, and we focus on a kind of an interesting niche. We help companies better understand why they win and lose the big deals they pitch for. So that's our kind of area of expertise. And I'm also the author of the book, Rebirth of the Salesman. The world of sales is evolving. Are you? That's the question. And hopefully today we can help with a little bit of that evolution.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. No.
Oh, Doyle's about to show his, but he's grabbing it behind us. And yeah, look, I'm a 20-year veteran in the sales industry. I'm passionate about improving the perception of it and also helping people to master the skills. So any questions that I can help with today, I'm eager to do. Doyle?
Yeah. No, thanks, Cian. And appreciate both of you guys coming out, and haven't heard back from Gulliver, but we'll keep going. Yeah, I was going to show. Hey, we've all got books. Okay, book shot. Pull your books up. There we go. All right, cool. Excellent. Yeah, so I mean that's really why I sort of pulled this group together, is to understand what the changing ways of selling is, whether it's digital, whether it's offline and online, and that sort of thing, and a combination of that as well, which is really, really critical, because I feel that a lot of businesses kind of miss the how do we sell, or am I supposed to be selling type conversation. And so I really wanted to kind of get inside your guys' minds to say, well, this is how we should be doing it, or this is how we could do it type thing, not should, and how could we be doing it better. So, Tim, you're coming from more of the digital space, which, is obviously my friend as well. Cian, you're doing a lot more sort of I guess what you typically call traditional
business.
Yeah, business to business, traditional sales and that sort of thing. So yeah. Lay out sort of the environment. Tim, what do you see happening right now, and what sort of changes have you come across in the last couple of years, and maybe even recently, or if there hasn't been any, let's talk about that too. Tim, would you like to start?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the move to where social selling's become business as usual, really, and I think that certainly what I've seen is that there tends to be this thing about whether it's cold calling or social or one or the other, and it's not. It's about, you should be using all techniques. At the end of the day, this is all about selling stuff and creating revenue. And if the best way to contact somebody is through email, then you should do that, or if you should pick up the phone. But, we train people, we train telesales agencies, in how to use social and bring that into the mix. Fact of the matter is people are going online and doing their research and doing that both online and offline, but they're doing the research before they actually make contact with people, and they are actively avoiding salespeople. So I do it myself.
So how would you define then social selling itself?
Well, it's for me, it's about using social as a tool to actually reach people and build relationships with them. It's kind of no different from what I used to, I started selling 25 years ago, And, you'd go to a networking event and you'd turn up and I'd get a cup of tea. And, you'd go up and talk to somebody, and immediately you'd try and find some sort of, you'd say, have you traveled very far? You've come from Birmingham. Oh, I went to university there. And immediately you try and find some connection that you actually know them. And I think that's the same with social. What you're doing is that you're able to do research on people, and you can go to Instagram and find out that they're walking Labrador dogs, and immediately you may have a Labrador dog, and you've got a way of you've got a connection. So I mean, there's no mystery around using social. It's what we've been doing for years. Sales has always been social, and I think it's one of those things where people try and make it too difficult, and actually it's kind of really straightforward.
It's easy. Okay, cool. Thanks, Tim. What do you think, Cian? Agree, disagree? Where are you coming from? What's the landscape from your perspective?
Yeah, I completely agree. Actually, I'd go back even 25 years prior to Tim's networking meetings, and 50 years where people were knocking on doors and going door to door. And you look at where the world of salesmanship evolved from. It is about creating a rapport, a connection, some sense of empathy with our customers. Well, all that's happened really is the communication platforms and mediums have changed a little bit over the years, but the fundamentals are still the same. And it's almost a sales cliche to say that we'll, all things being equal, we'll do business with those that we like and we trust, and we can see ourselves developing an ongoing relationship with. Because in the work that we do, it's really, really interesting. We're in a very privileged position because we get to sit down with decision makers and ask them why they made their purchasing decision. And these might be very, very significant pieces of business, $20, $30, $50 million pieces of business, where surely it can't relate to just people. It must be about incredible technology. It must be about huge pricing differences or return on investment. And invariably, it comes back to the people. They talk about the culture of the company they purchase from. They talk about the quality of the team, and that the fact that they felt they were a safe pair of hands, or they could manage and mitigate their risk, or they had new ideas. All of it comes down to people in the end. And so that, for me, is a really, really positive sign, because we keep hearing about the death knell of the sales industry. We keep hearing about all of these jobs disappearing, certainly in the B2C world, but even at the bottom end of B2B. But the reality is there is still a need for people, but those people need to be doing slightly different things and engaging in a slightly different way. But fundamentally, they're absolutely still required.
So the sales game is not going away. So
No.
how do businesses kind of realize that? Sorry, Tim, go ahead.
I was going to say that I think that there are certain sales jobs going away because sales in an organization is traditionally is the area that people are spending the most money. Mm-hmm. And so they will always look for savings and cutbacks. And what people will try and do is and will try and use technology to automate certain things. I mean, I'm aware of a deal where somebody rang up a salesperson at NetSuite and basically said, we've looked at the YouTube videos, we've looked at all your brochures, and we want to buy it. Now, they're not the best negotiator, obviously, but the fact of the matter is, that's like 100% of the sales process taking place online. Now, I only know one example of that. I don't know lots of them. But there are people that, if you therefore know that you can get people to actually look at the YouTube videos and then buy, then why wouldn't you just, if you've got a SaaS system, you could cut out some of the salespeople and just say, just put your credit card and buy it. And there are organizations that are doing that. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to kill every single sales job, but what salespeople have to do is raise themselves up and become, I'm not necessarily thought leaders, but in the areas where they're being transactional, that those jobs won't exist, and artificial intelligence will come along and replace those jobs. Just as much as when I started off, there was a typing pool, and we wrote all our letters out on paper and we handed them to the typing pool and they were typed up. And then, a couple of years later, I got a 386 PC and AMI Pro, and I was told I had to type. So there was a, we've always gone through where there's been technology, and there's been change, and we've had to react to that, and that will happen in sales.
I see, Doyle, that Therese has asked a question there, and I think it actually goes to Tim's point very, very nicely. In terms of how we build trust in social, I think certainly from my perspective, and obviously Tim is the guru here, so I'll come to him on this in a second. People are looking for things for individuals who are credible authorities or experts, and so we're incredibly lucky in the sense that we have a chance to almost curate the first impression that we make, because the first impression usually precedes actually speaking to someone or meeting them face to face. So a lot of the content online, we have the ability to, at the very least interact with, if not actually manage, in terms of our LinkedIn profile, our websites, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, investing in that is really, really important. But the other thing is this concept that people are 50, 60, or 70% of the way down their buying cycle before they engage with vendors or with salespeople is absolutely true. Or, as Tim said, in rare occasions they're 100% of the way down because they're ready to purchase. But there's an element that's quite confusing to a lot of companies here, which is, oh, well, if they're 70% of the way down, then we can kind of get rid of that piece. All that means that they're doing their research online. So the onus is on us to be creating the right content, engaging content, to be putting it in the right place, to be optimizing it for SEO, to be doing all that stuff. Because really what they're doing is they're self-serving for the content that salespeople used to give them. We used to be walking, talking brochures. We're no longer obliged to do that, but we are obliged to put that content out there. And some of the feedback we get is really interesting, because people say, you know what, if your content is poor or if your content is gated and we get a phone call immediately after we download it, I'm not interested. And so it's changing the point of attack around the whole area of content management, content curation.
So have we become sort of order takers then? Like, if obviously we're seeing some adaptation in the sales process, but has sales become just sort of the order takers, where they've done that research, they've done the information, they've gotten to that stage where they're ready to buy? And is that the case or not?
Well, the thing that you need to be doing now in sales is what we were just talking about, which is you've got the ability. If it doesn't matter what the percentage is in terms of, but people are actually going on and going online and actually researching, and regardless of what the percentage is, you've got the ability to influence that. And so to answer the question, what do you need to do online? Well, you need to be yourself. And yourself is a professional, trustworthy person who has an interest in things and who has a bit of a sense of humor, all of the things that you are, and you have to present and project that out on social. Because the first, there was a discussion today on Facebook, which I happened to be tagged in, so I was party of. And of course, there's some names up. The first thing I do is I go and look at those individuals on LinkedIn, and because I want to know what they're like, so everybody, and everybody draws a conclusion and takes a judgment from what your position, both from passive and active work, is on social. And if you're posting really interesting stuff, you're likely to get followed. And then once you're followed, you've got the ability to actually influence what people are thinking, because you're posting interesting stuff or engaging stuff. I mean, someone said to me the other day in a meeting, "What happens if you post rubbish?" It's like, well, like and actually, the battleground for salespeople is about finding insights and about telling business people what they don't know.
Yeah.
And if you, there's the CEB research says that, business as usual now is that you put a brochure out or you whatever. And what we all want to know is something new. And as a salesperson, that's kind of what we need to be doing. And if we go to LinkedIn and we look at our feed, we know who the interesting people are. We know who the people that we look out and seek, because we go, he or she will have posted something and it will be interesting and it will be insightful. And that's the trick. It's as easy as that.
Yeah. It's interesting because, we're talking on the one hand about the rise of sort of automation and commoditization and AI, which Tim referred to. But there's a counterweight to that, which is specialization and customization, which is a real opportunity for us. As as there's a proliferation of more and more competitors, what we need to do is get clearer and clearer on who our target audience are, niche down to those guys, and then you can actually give them a really, really targeted, specific message because you understand them. And then you can actually have the opportunity to personalize your content. So it's so engaging for them that they become loyal to you before they ever become even a customer of yours. Thomas has asked a really interesting question here online. He's talking about the fact that it's all well and good if you've got a product that's already existing or well known, but what about if it's something completely new or customers don't know about it? So look, I have some thoughts on that. Tim, do you want to kick off maybe, and I'll share my thoughts?
Yes, well, it kind of comes in from what you were saying, because in my book I talk about how a salesperson now has to build a community, and all that is doing is picking up the way that I used to run my territory, taking that from an analog world and putting it into a digital world, which is that you're constantly trying to, there's this whole bunch of people that you're talking to and you're going through active sales processes. But what you're also trying to do is feed the pipe. So you need to be kind of talking to these people at the top. So you're actually going down. Now, we've been talking to a number of startups in the UK that are fintech, where they don't want to be in a situation where they're telling people what they're doing. So we've actually been doing things like building, social media activity in stealth, building the community and talking about particular subjects that community would actually want, and feeding that with content, getting to the point where somebody wants to go live and then switching it over and saying, now actually it's this particular product. So it is possible to, it's quite easy to do social, certainly in stealth mode, and there are people that are doing it and doing it quite a lot.
I think the other thing is if you've got a product or a service which isn't particularly well known or well understood in the market, and you're not in that scenario that Tim described where you want to stay in stealth mode for a particular reason, the last thing you want to do is go out and start trying to just sell it, because the issue will be people won't understand it. They won't understand that, the issue that they have, or why is this mousetrap so different to, every other mousetrap, and, the old ones have worked well for me. So there's a couple of things you can do when you're in development phase, and as you start to build interest and engagement in a tribe, you can also actually tap into that audience to understand what it is that they're looking for. So before you actually get your MVP, you can almost, or your minimal viable product, you can almost build that with a couple of customers in mind. One of the things which we often talk about when we're working with companies is understanding that not all leads are created equal. Not all customers are created equal. And you actually have to understand the sort of the stratification of those customers. Because if I've got a brand new product, I don't want to go out to 50,000 people. I want to get 4 or 5 lighthouse customers who are prepared to spend some money. And I don't even care how much money they spend, because this is going to prove my model. This is going to give me a reference story. It's going to give me a case study. It's going to maybe give me something that I can do a press release on. So these are invaluable customers. And also, if you pick the right ones, and if you potentially co-innovate with them in the early stages, they will become advocates for your business. They will become the best referrers for you. And they will help you to then evangelize your product or your service moving forward. So it's really important that we don't just focus on, how quickly can I sell this to someone, but it's how can we get the right customers that you can get 5 or 10 different pieces of benefit from, in addition to the fact that they've dropped some, a chunk of change for your product or your service. And that's the way to start thinking about that. In the early stages, you think about lighthouse customers. Then you think about, cross-sell and upsell to existing customers. How do you extract referrals from customers? And moving down all the way down from inbound, right the way down to outbound, where we're interrupting them, and they tend to be the ones that the sales cycles are the longest, and often they're the hardest to convert. So understand that not all leads or all customers are created equal, and have a different strategy. Going back to what Tim said earlier on, it's not a one-size-fits-all strategy. We need to look at all the different strategies available to us, and then create a almost like an umbrella program where we can leverage different strategies for different parts of our offering, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely does. And there's lots of factors to sort of measure leading up to that sale, but also after that sale as well. It's not sort of you can't take a finite piece of the sales conversations, or you can, but then you kind of limit yourself in what you do. So
you do. I think a customer really is only a customer when they buy from you for the second time. That's a pretty good mantra.
Okay.
because invariably what customers do is exactly the same thing that we do. We dip our toe in the water. So we might go and buy your lowest product, or your $25 ebook, or your whatever it might be. And then you're earning the right to sell us the next thing. And if you do a great job, if you kind of over service us, if we get a huge amount of value, then we think, wow, that was actually really, really good. So now we've earned the right to go and do the next piece. And then you have an offering that goes all the way up to your top offering, and you keep earning the right to move through that. And then you tap into your customers for new products and for referrals, etc. And that's the way to think about each customer, rather than, oh, I've sold them, that's great, let me move on to the next one. Because a lot of companies, big and small, have this crazy focus on net new, white space, blue sky, and don't reflect on the fact that, we have to service our existing customers. And actually, it's much easier to sell more stuff to our existing customers than it is to sell things to brand new customers.
Yeah. And
the current CEB research is saying that there's actually a lot of buyer remorse in B2B. Something like 45% of purchases when you go in and interview. And I don't know whether you interview wins as well as losses, but people go in and they buy it and they say, "Wish we hadn't bought this."
Yeah, we do interview wins as well as losses, and the insights from those are equally fascinating. And what's most interesting of all, and this applies to big and small businesses, you don't need to bring in a third party like our company to do it. You can absolutely do this yourself. You can go and talk to your customer. Maybe get someone else in your business to do it rather than you, because you want to create a bit of separation so you get the truth from your customer. But what's really interesting is how far off the mark we are in terms of why we think we win and why we think we lose relative to the feedback of customers. It's extraordinary. And so that's really interesting, because if we don't understand that, then it's hard to repeat that behavior if it's a win, and it's hard to ensure we don't repeat that behavior if it's a loss. So we're leaving all these nuggets of insight that we've earned, we're leaving those sitting on the table as we walk away. So it's just a missed opportunity.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's something to consider. So are we kind of hiding behind, Tim, I'd like to get some sort of insight from you. Are we kind of hiding behind our computer screen in the digital world and avoiding sales?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, and I think it's getting worse because, I've downloaded white papers from Marketo and Salesforce, and because I want to, they've got some good content which I'm going to post, and within 20 seconds I'm getting a phone call from somebody. Do I want to buy something? It's like, no, I don't. And if you look me up, you'd find that what? Come on, guys. You're using technology one way and I understand why, from a sales perspective, I download something that's you somehow or other I've obviously shown some
You're
level
a hot
of interest.
lead.
I'm a hot lead, yeah. And but you could actually look at me and you could see that I probably wasn't in the business of buying something. So we're in a way, we're what I see is we're kind of killing the golden goose.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of... Sorry?
I agree.
Okay. Killing the golden goose.
And there's a whole lot of stuff we can do with technology, but we're kind of doing, we've let the salespeople get hold of the technology, and it's, here we go.
But from that perspective, Tim, it's good because some people will never call you. So the reverse of that is like you download something and you probably maybe even, download a couple and you never hear from the company again. And it's like, well, I was ready to buy. Now I've kind of moved on from there. So
yeah, we've been just been part of our growth. We've been swapping some systems around, and we've actually approached certain companies, and I have, I have quite a big profile, and I've been to certain organizations and said, we'd like to use your product, and we don't get an answer. And then I went back and said, we want to use your product, and I'll go online and tell people that we're using it, and we don't get an answer.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's that sort of like I don't know, maybe their email system wasn't working that day, but there's a certain you know with you know, I grew up cold calling, and you know, there's a certain stage fright that often salespeople get where, you know, I've actually got to pick up the phone and actually make a call, and I may get rejection, even though I've sent an email saying I pretty much want to buy your product.
But I think Tim raises a really interesting point, and I think this is you know, it's worth pausing to reflect on this for everyone on the call. You have to be easy to work with, easy to do business with.
Yeah.
You have to, you know, I'll often we work with, you know, lots of different companies, big and small, but, you know, more often than not quite large. And you go to them and you say, tell me about your sales process. And they start talking, and you say, show me your sales process. And they have a blank look in their face because they haven't taken the time to document their sales process. And what that means is, depending on who I engage with, I get a completely different interaction. They don't know all the touch points. So what happens when the phone rings and people are off on their lunch hour? What happens when people do this? What happens when people do that? So they're not taking the time. It's almost like, you know, that way you walk into a shop and the shop assistant says to you, you know, if it's a clothes shop, do you need some help? You go, no, I'm just browsing. Because you want an opportunity to go away and do that browsing, at which point you'll be ready for some help. So in Tim's scenario, instead of them calling him 20 seconds later, if they've dropped him a note and said, hey, saw you downloaded this, here's a couple of other ones you might be interested in on a similar topic, and then said, you know, in the next period of time, would you mind if we reach out and we can have a chat and let us know if it's not relevant? Now they're giving him a little bit of space to say, enjoy our content, engage with it, and then, you know, if appropriate, we'd love to have a chat. So they're not forcing themselves down his throat. And I think it's really, really important that whether you're a big or small company, you ask yourself the question, are we easy to do business with? Are all of our touch points working the way they're supposed to work? Whether that's, you know, responsiveness to emails, whether it's, you know, website call to action, whatever it is. Because if you get that part of the process right, then you're at least making it easier for people to, you know, to buy from you or to engage with you. And a lot of companies do that so badly that, as Tim described, we just get pissed off and we walk away and we spend our money elsewhere because they've made it too hard for us to work with them. And also our question is, if this is how hard it is to buy off you, what's it going to be like to work with you down the track?
Yeah, no.
So I actually took that. I took the report that Salesforce created, and I started posting it, and I tagged them, and I tweeted it, and I tagged them. Now, so, you know, when I downloaded it, I get a phone call from a salesperson, but tagging them on social media, on LinkedIn and Twitter, nothing.
So what are they?
And I actually there was actually then a conversation on one of the pieces on LinkedIn where I actually then tagged them again and said, if you're listening, can you actually reach out and contact me? Nothing.
Really? So what are they doing wrong then? How do they connect that bit?
Well, they need to be. Well, they're not. They're obviously not listening on social media, or listening, or someone actively involved in running their LinkedIn.
It's still more of a push process. Then it's like, here's our stuff. You know, can I help you kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, I actually posted something as a test the other day, and I think they've got about 5 or 6 Twitter accounts. So I just tagged the whole lot. I know it's a bit spammy, but I was just doing a bit of test just to see if I was getting anything. Yeah. And there was nothing at all.
Yeah.
And you know, I've got 180,000 followers on Twitter. You know, I've got a very big reach and amplification. Now that, you know, it's if you're dropping it's like dropping a rock into a pool. It makes a big splash, and there was nothing at all. And I would have expected someone to reach out and said, "Hey, thanks for sharing it, Tim." Yeah. You know, just as if I shared your material, you'd come back and we'd probably have a discussion, you know, and a conversation, and immediately, because if you look at most corporate Twitter accounts, there's probably somebody actually behind that account. Yeah. And you start building relationships with them and having conversations, because that's what social media is about.
Yeah, exactly. So Cian, they missed the do a post sales analysis here. They've obviously missed the pitch, right? Completely.
So what they've done, in my opinion, is they've paid lip service to social. They've said, "Oh, right, we need to get ourselves a Twitter account. We need to, you know, be present on LinkedIn," and they've done that piece. But what they haven't realized is that you're almost worse doing that than not doing anything at all. Because if you're not going to commit to to whatever the social platform is that you're engaging with, you're sending a very clear message to your customer, which is, you know what, your time, your message, your communication is not important to us. So really, don't bother. And that's a terrible message to send. I would rather, if Tim had said, and I couldn't find a Twitter handle for them, that says something. That says they've made a decision that Twitter isn't going to be a platform for them, and whether that's the right or wrong thing, that's their prerogative. But if they haven't done that, then as a business of that size and that reach, they need to be engaging with their customers. And the reality is, for so many years, it was actually quite hard to do that. You'd get the odd, customer survey flicked over to you as a customer that you may or may not respond to. Now, there's so many mechanisms to get, timely, accurate, engaging feedback from your customers and to engage in a dialogue, that if you're not taking that opportunity, you're missing a massive kind of segment of the market. And you're also saying, oh, this social media thing, this is going to go away. It's a fad, but it's not. It's just another extension of the conversation with your audience. So yeah, I think a slap over the wrist is not what they need. They need someone to sit them down and fundamentally talk to them about the way the landscape of business is changing and how they need to adapt to not just thrive but survive.
Yeah, no, for sure. So going from that side of somebody not responding, who are some examples of maybe some companies, Tim and Cian, who you think that are doing it well, or maybe not perfectly, but at least they've kind of got more of their stuff together?
HubSpot for me is one, and I don't know a huge amount about HubSpot, but basically, anytime I Google anything I need, anything of interest, I need some content about this, HubSpot's content tends to be towards the top of the page. And then when I go into it, I know it's going to be really, really good, really engaging, written in a way that's very, very useful, easy for me to access, with some supporting content around it. I never get harassed by people from that business post engaging with their content. And as a result, I have a warm and fuzzy spot in my heart for them because they're making our lives easier. And that, I think, is, understand your audience, make their life easier, give them engaging content, and they'll return the favor.
So in that case, they are like a digital company then, right? Because they're founded upon
HubSpot practice what they preach. Yeah, I mean, they're the people that came up with the term inbound. Of having a marketing program of using content, and therefore, in effect, allowing people to go out and self-serve, and then coming in and contacting you and saying, "I liked your white paper. Can you come and help us?" And they are, they're doing it right. Nimble, which is a CRM system that we use, again, are very similar. Changing tack very slightly. If you look at the gambling sites in the UK, which are, even though that's B2C, the gambling sites, what have they got to sell? Well, do you want to bet? And I can give you 30% off. Really what they become a destination. And there's not just a person, there's a team behind it, because they know is that they need to reach out and contact people that are betting now, but they also want to reach out people that when the Grand National or something, or somebody that hasn't bet yet, and ultimately they're doing what we all do, which is try and fill the funnel at the top and then bring people down. But the betting Twitter handles in the UK are a destination, and are defining what probably people are talking about. Certainly within the first couple of hours when they get into the office in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Thomas has asked a couple of questions there. I might pick up the last one, Thomas, where you're asking, so the companies need to have a full-time person to answer or engage on all social channels. I think the real answer is it depends. It depends on the size of the company. It depends on what it is they're selling and the size of their audience. I run a small boutique business. So I will be checking social media maybe 3 or 4 times a day. I can do it on my phone when I'm in transit. And I'll respond to people, and I'll engage with people because they've taken the time out of their days to comment on a post on LinkedIn, to reach out and ask a question, whatever it might be. That's the social and the social selling piece. The selling in the social selling piece is then how you parlay that initial connection into something more, where they're now saying, oh, okay, that's interesting. Yes, we do have that need, or yes, we'd like to talk about that more. And quite often, and I'm interested in Tim's view on this. Quite often, the advice that I give companies is at a certain point, you want to get them from whatever social platform it is into the real world. But it depends. If that's at the higher end of B2B, if you can do it all online, great, absolutely. But you want to take that connection and take it to something that's more personalized, I suppose, in order to be in a position to actually convert that.
So there is back to HubSpot, they are a pure digital B2B play. And obviously there's a spectrum here in terms of, there's a lot of probably service-based businesses that are struggling with that digital side of things. How do we kind of bridge that gap? Because they started in the online space. That's why they were created.
But the digital provides an opportunity for small businesses to actually scale, and it allows, social media isn't exactly free. It kind of is free. It costs you time in terms of what you're doing. There's certain things in terms of the way that the algorithms have changed now that if you're boring, you generally won't be found. Social media in effect is free, and small organizations can punch above their weight versus big organizations. And social media is just an amazing way for small, medium enterprises to stand up against, and stand out. Especially startups or the mousetrap or the dead mouse. How we put on my company's Twitter. We put on about 1,000 followers a month, and we're just approaching about 6,000 followers. And we've been going 6 months now. If someone says you got 6,000 followers, you think, oh, you must be a big company. Well, no, we're not. We've got 11 people. But it does, and again, it's about how you present yourself on social. People will come to a conclusion. 6,000 followers, you probably must have 6,000 employees. You must be massive. Well, so I mean, it's a great opportunity for small organizations to really grasp, have a conversation with their customer. And I agree with you. We have a full-time person that does our social. And she and I basically share it, but we will have that conversation. And one of the things you made a point just now about, I was having a discussion with Jack Kowinski the other day, which was about how quite often what we're finding from a social perspective is that people are now working out how to have those conversations on social, but what they're not doing is then taking them offline or realizing that they need to do that. And I think you need to get to the point where you go, come on, let's have a telephone conversation, or let's have a coffee. Sometimes it's not it's more difficult if you're in Sydney or in Melbourne or something like that, but you could at least have we've had a Skype conversation. So, it's the technology is there.
Yeah. I think there's never been a better time to be a small business. And I think the great thing about being a small business is you have the ability to be agile and to change your point of attack quite quickly, and also maybe to say things that it would be harder to say as a big business, because I'm not talking about just creating controversy, but you can have an opinion. You can come up with something which is newsworthy or engaging, and all of a sudden get massive traction really, really quickly. In the first 12 months I was running my business, it was just me. I did a live news interview for 12 or 13 minutes talking about a topic in relation to sales and marketing, because I pitched an idea, because I had no marketing budget and I had nothing else to do. I was sitting in the second bedroom of my house and was like, wow, how am I going to hustle and make this stuff happen? And we can do that. And it's it is an absolutely huge opportunity. But what we have to do is we have to know our audience. We have to commit to the content we're going to create, be consistent in that, and then also choose the right platforms. And then coming back to what we're talking about here today is realize that the selling in social selling is as important, if not more, in order for you to be able to do this for the next 3 to 5 years. So we need to be able to make that linkage between putting out great content and then convert that into customers, and loyal customers who will follow us to the ends of the earth because we know them better than anyone else does.
Yeah, some excellent points. Just to our audience, if you've got any questions coming up, we've got a few more here. please feel free to ask them as well. But yeah, getting back to the conversation, like how do we, pardon me, bridge that gap then? Like it sounds like from what obviously we've all experienced is that digital is a great space to be in, but we're still not kind of getting it. There's a lot of businesses that are really struggling, and I believe that it comes down to having that sales conversation. How do we kind of pull all this stuff together to be able to make it work and to help the business?
Look, I have a view on this, and I might pass to Tim. I think one of the things we need to do, and I talked about being easy to work with, is actually packaging up our offerings. Making it really, really simple, saying, there's three ways you can engage us, and it's this, and this looks like this, and these are the benefits, and it costs X, and it's this, and it's this. Or if you're a service business and rather than a product business, you can structure it a little bit differently. But giving people something that they can say yes to, apart from just register for our newsletter, because innately people are busy, and we haven't got the time to sift through the nuances of your website or your content and understand, oh, okay, you're really a consultant, and this is the type of consultancy you do. We have to call that out. And this is a mistake that I've made in my business over time, is not articulating it simply enough in plain English. This is what we do. This is how to engage with us. We'd love to work with you. And hey, you know what? Here's some great stories of other people that work with us. And then working it. So that's the social piece. But it's also, what are you doing to drive referrals? What are you doing to drive repeat business? What are you doing to bring net new customers in? Are you creating calls to action around that? Are you creating campaigns around that? Whatever it is, that's the sales execution piece. And the nice thing about the world we live in is that so much content freely available. So if it's a question that you have, first thing I do is go Google, and I'd spend an hour trying to understand the topic about how do you sell your product for the first time if you've never sold it before. And you will find information from Tim and myself and a million other people, and you can tease out the bits that are relevant and go and do it. I had a conversation with someone yesterday who was trying to fill seminar rooms. He's running some seminars for the first time and was struggling to do that. And he was saying, this is the thing I was doing. And I said, okay, well, that thing in itself is okay. What are the other 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 things that you also were doing to fill the room? And he said, well, no, I was just doing this one thing. And that's the issue. We need to have a broad strategy to get bums on seats, or to get products off shelves, or whatever it is, rather than a one-size-fits-all model, because that's not the way customers engage anymore.
So in that point, though, you're saying we're over-relying on online kind of thing.
I think online is a great mechanism to fill the funnel. That's too much of a simplification. It's a great mechanism to do a million things, including fill the funnel. But the problem with it is it doesn't automatically create a nice kind of slide down into the very, very qualified opportunities. There's a whole lot of other things we need to do, and that can relate to our content strategy, but it can also relate to our sales strategy. At what point do we try and move them out of that into the conversation that Tim just referred to? And do we have a mechanism to do that? Because if we don't, then we're doing the hard bit, which is building the content and getting people in at the top and creating a tribe, but we're not doing what should be the relatively easy piece, which is converting those people.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Tim?
Well, we get all of our business through inbound or referrals, and we get inbound on a daily basis, and we basically we simplified and we do 3 things. I'm not going to go through what those 3 things are. They're on our website, but and we say to people, this is what we do, and we and that should be articulated within 20 seconds. And what we do is that we create content that basically matches to those 3 things. We put out a piece of content on a daily basis. It doesn't have to be a blog. It could be a quote. It could be, but we're constantly and consistently putting out content around what it is that we do, and creating a debate and a dialogue out in the marketplace around those particular areas. And it's only now that we've got a little bit bigger that we're actually actively going out and probing in terms of from a sales perspective. But up to this point, we've done the whole lot through content.
So do you have Do you still have that sales conversation, or do people buy from what you've done with your content? Do they kind of show up with their credit card, or do you actually still have to have that conversion conversation process?
It's usually that we'll get there'll be an inbound, and at which point we'll ask for a conversation, because it'll either be unclear about what it is that they're asking for, or, for example, I got inbound around, will you come and speak at an HR conference? It's like, what do you want me to talk at an HR conference? Oh, we will. And then when you get on the phone, it's about personal branding, and it's about expanding their minds, and, So, and it's only when you have that conversation that you understand the context. But yeah, for me, the telephone and having the conversations with people face to face are just as important. They always have been.
So I just want to quickly pick up on something Tim said there, because what Tim has done in his business is kind of like the nirvana from a sales perspective, because the two types of leads he gets are inbound and referral, which just so happen to be the two types of leads that convert at the highest possible rate, that have the shortest sales cycles, that tend to have higher transaction values, and all of those other things. Because what happens in that scenario is, by the time they get to Tim or his team, they already see Tim as the expert. So it's almost a question of, have you got some capacity? Have you got some time for us? They've qualified themselves in so well that they're ready to have a sales conversation. Now, not all of those conversations will necessarily convert straight away, and not all of them necessarily will convert at all. But you get to a decision much more quickly. So the cost of sale is lower. The whole process runs more smoothly, much more smoothly. Whereas if you're constantly chasing outbound, because you haven't developed a mechanism to bring people to you, it's just so much harder. So that is genuinely the nirvana of business models. If you can have people coming to you, well qualified, understanding what you do, wanting to have the right conversation. Yeah.
So if you think about the traditional sales pipeline of 0, 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%. So that process is a zero-sum game. You will have the same 2 or 3 competition. And as you always know, with those competition, they lie and they cheat. And at the end of the day, they give it away anyway for free. And so the only way that you're ever going to win that business is by reducing your margins. So the whole point of social is to raise yourself above that, and to be in those discussions, whatever the 10, 20, 50% it is, whichever consultant's done the particular research. Yeah. And you need to be having those discussions out on social, and building the relationships and putting out content above the pipeline. And that's where salespeople and marketers need to be working. And if you're a good salesperson, you can get a lead before the competition. And if you're a good salesperson, you'll close it before the competition at a higher margin than if it was within the pipeline.
Absolutely.
So do we still need then, I'll take the other side. Do you still need that cold calling then? Is that here to stay, or is that kind of disappearing like the dinosaurs?
And it's really it's a
different concept, but yeah, love to hear your thoughts.
if you go on a LinkedIn, the most argumentative conversations I've ever seen, because LinkedIn's quite a nice, professional social platform, is around exactly that topic. You've got, people in 2 camps holding pitchforks, ready for battle. Some will defend cold calling to the hilt, others will say it's dead, but actually, I think, and Tim alluded to this earlier on, it's a combination strategy, and I think you shouldn't really be needing to cold call, with the emphasis on the word cold, anymore, because there's so much content available in the world to find out a little bit about people. You can do 5 minutes of sleuthing and then get to a point of having a moderately lukewarm call at least. But the telephone is a key part of the arsenal of any salesperson, because it's a conversation. Yeah. Whether it's, this is a great mechanism as well. I was asked a question recently by someone who said, look, we do all our work on the phone, and it's quite difficult to create that rapport and connection. And I said, do you engage with these people just once or multiple times? I said, no, multiple times might be over a period of weeks or months. And I said, well, just do a Skype call, just do a video conference. All of a sudden you see each other, the relationship changed, and they've started doing that. And now it's spread across the whole business, because everyone was finding actually it was much more engaging, and you can build a relationship that way. So, use technology for that, but you absolutely have to have the conversation.
But not necessarily.
I still see cold calling as a mechanism to find opportunity. I mean, in my previous company, I had a cold calling team reporting into me, and generally what you would expect in terms of output was if you rang 100 people, you'd probably get 5 conversations, and of those you'd probably get 1 meeting. Now, if you talk to someone like Joanne Black, who's the one of the big global referral gurus, she reckons that you'll get a 70% response rate if you're using referrals and you've done it properly. So I think you have to get the balance. I think you need to be putting out content. You need to be making cold calls.
Yeah.
But through time, we've always warmed them up, whether it was when I started selling and I wrote people's letters and sent, did you get my letter? And then we'd send people emails, and did you get my email? And so you're always trying to warm people up, and now we can do it on social.
Yeah, no, excellent. It's unfortunate the reason I invited Gulliver along as well. Unfortunately, he's had some tech issues, but yeah, that's kind of his business, is being more direct, doing the, not necessarily cold calling, obviously a little bit of that, but also the warm calling as well, and picking up the phone and doing business that way.
Oh, it's a pity he's not
here. It is. Really unfortunate. So cool. Well, I want to close things off shortly. I don't want to keep you guys. I really appreciate your time that you've spent in answering some questions. Are there any questions right now that you might be able to answer? And then we'll kind of close with last couple of comments from each of you.
I see Teresa's asked the question, which companies are doing social commerce well? I think that Tim, you might be this, because the term social commerce is not one I'm familiar with really. Is that a kind of a combination of using social to sell stuff? Is that?
Yeah, I think you had a conversation with Teresa, Tim.
Yeah, because I had that. You asked that question on Facebook, and because I thought social commerce was a website. That's in the UK. That would the term social commerce would usually be used when it was a retail website.
Okay.
In terms of if it's about using social to sell, then it's back to the content, and we're not going, hey, it's Tim here and I've got 30% off. It's here are the if you've got a social selling program, these are the 5 things. These are the 5 mistakes that you're going to make in the social selling program. I'm putting that out as a piece of content, and for someone to go, actually, but the fact that he knows that those are the 5 mistakes I'm going to make, I'm going to give him a call because he obviously knows his stuff around social selling, and doing that on a consistent in a consistent way.
Yeah, I recently did a podcast with Brian Burns, the brutal truth of sales, and I must admit I hadn't listened to the podcast previously, but I had seen Brian's content online, and I would say I've had 20 to 30 inbound contacts off the basis of that one interview, because obviously he's got a very large and engaged audience, and people listen and then act on what they hear. So it's really interesting. You throw the ripple out there, you consistently engage in content, consistently engage in a conversation, and it comes back to you in spades.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
It's that giving to get, it's that sharing and that conversation around, how many times, giving twice to get one back. But, from a selling perspective, just, in my company, what we've decided is to give our IP away.
Yeah.
Because it's, there's this saying about it's an 80-20. What you do is you give 80% away, and people will pay for the other 20%. Well, if I go to a customer and I present that 20%, it's out there anyway. So and it's just so easy to copy. What we've decided to do is just to give all our IP away, because at the end of the day, it's likely that 20% is actually likely to create us inbound. My business partner, Adam Gray, we had a long discussion about this and a long debate. And at the end, it was like, what people are just going to copy it anyway.
And what's really interesting as well is if you do put all that great content out there, and it almost gives people the ability to self-serve and do it themselves if they want to, the vast majority of companies are too busy or they want the experts. And so they come to you anyway, and they say, look, we know all the content's there, but you know what, we want you to come in, we want you to hold our hand, and we want you to walk us through the process, so we want you to manage it for us. So that tends to just be the way I think most people respond.
So if people take that content and self-serve and do it themselves, they were never going to buy from me in the first place.
Yeah.
But they, you know, in 2 years' time, they may be in a situation where they've moved to another organization where they go, I'm going to get Tim Hughes in to help, because I tried to do it myself and I was rubbish. I'm now in a position where so, you know, maybe down the line I will get a sale.
And some people are at least honest about that. It's like, I'm here, I'm going to steal your content, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Or you find it, you know, I'm not sure, serendipitously hidden somewhere under some nook and cranny on the internet. Cool. No, fascinating discussion. I'm going to sort of wrap things up. So, Cian, maybe you could just sort of, you know, one of your biggest highlights of what we've been talking about. And then you also have, you want to give a gift as well.
Yeah, I do. So look, biggest highlight, for me, I've seen Tim's content online for many years and seen him online for many years. So it's been great to actually connect with him, you know, in person and see, you know, how much alignment we have in terms of our philosophies around selling and doing business. For everyone who took the time to log in today, I hope it was useful. I'm happy to share a copy of my book, Rebirth of the Salesman, for everyone who's online today. Doyle will have soft copies available.
I'll send out the link by email. So yeah, thank you, Cian. Really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And Tim?
I really enjoy talking to people that know about social and digital, and so like this is one of these chats, and it's just nice to talk with people, and I really appreciate people logging in and asking the questions. It's been fantastic, and it's just nice, and it's. Here it is. It's 4 minutes to 12 o'clock at night, and I've actually had a really good time.
Thanks.
And for me, you know, talking social and stuff like that, it's, you know, living the dream.
Yeah, so. No, cool. And one sort of nugget that you can give away that somebody will steal or use effectively.
I've been giving nuggets away all
of course,
night.
I know you have. That's okay.
You know, getting content. The content. The key to social is being authentic and getting good content. Not content that you think is just ticking a box.
Yeah. It's
about content that engages. You know, one of your fellow compatriots, give an example, is no relation of mine, but is a Hughes, and you know, I did a video with him, and it's had 1,000 views, and just the way that Tony Hughes has basically got that scale, and you know, he's got 130,000 followers on LinkedIn,
yeah,
and he's done that because he's a great guy, and he's put out great content, and he's engaged.
Yeah.
You might not agree with everything he says, but he's just done that because of the being authentic and having great content.
Yeah. Tony's a good mate of mine, and I've been just amazed to watch his journey over the last few years from a complete novice in social 3 years ago, where he'd never written a post on LinkedIn, to being the #1 social selling expert in the Asia region. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, no, excellent. Yeah. Well, cool. I've had a fantastic time with you guys. I really appreciate you taking that time, and I picked up some amazing nuggets as well. So I really appreciate your insights into everything. Thanks, Tim, for holding out for us late in the evening your time. It's still kind of early here for me, but good afternoon to you, Cian, as well. So,
yeah, you too, man.
Thanks, and we'll see you online.
All the best.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. All the best.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Bye. Bye.